Hello, and welcome back for another episode of the Kumbay'all podcast. I am so excited to have here with me today Karla Arredondo. She is actually our newest teammate at Renew Pelvic Health here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am so excited to chat with her all about infant attunement and mother-baby bond. So I would love to dive right into it. Karla, what is attunement?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm really excited to talk about this. So let's start with attunement. Attunement is essentially being in tune with someone else's emotional state. So it requires being truly present with another person. So in the case of mother-infant relationship, it's, being connected to your baby, maybe mirroring their affect. So attunement allows for deeper connection and understanding.
Mm. That's amazing. That's incredible. So even if we're there physically with our babies or with anyone, really, I guess, if we're not paying attention to them, if we're just kind of like on our phone scrolling, it's not the same. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I heard you say that, like, deeper connection. So it seems to me there's like intention there. There's, kind of like being conscious, being present.
Exactly.
Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, if we were, and I think this happens a lot now, and sometimes it's very understandable, but sometimes we're breastfeeding and we're over here on our phones and holding our babies, and that is kind of like a missed opportunity for that attunement.
Yes. I'm so guilty of that, especially in the middle of the night when you're like, yeah. So like, oh my God, is anyone else awake? Like, let me just, look and, oh yeah. Oh gosh. So what are some examples, if you could give us, of mother-infant attunement? Like, is this different from bonding with your baby, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So bonding is made up of attachment and attunement. So attachment is the emotional bond that is built between a caregiver and their baby, while attunement is the way that we tune in to our babies, the way we interpret their emotions, the way we try to understand their thoughts, and then the way that we respond to what they're feeling. Now, some examples of that, of the mother-infant attunement, is kind of like mirroring our baby's facial expressions. It's also responding to their cries at night to offer comfort, even if they are fed, if they're clean, we still respond to that. And it's also respecting their temperaments. So even if they clash with ours, and we'll get a little more into that.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting because, yeah, everyone's different, and you expect your child to just be a little you. And especially when they start showing otherwise, it can be tricky. It can be pretty hard. So why is attunement?
Sometimes we kind of like come with preconceived, sometimes we come into motherhood with preconceived ideas of what babies like, right? So almost like, universally babies like this, but we might find that that's not the case every time.
Yes. Well, and you said there too, so in the night when they're dry, they're fed, and they're still crying, it's like, why are they crying? And you have this, at least I've had these times where it's like, okay, I've done everything right. I did what I know to do. Like, why are you crying? And they may just need you. They just, they may just, I mean, they're their own person, and you don't know what's going on in their head. And so I like that attunement really takes into account their individuality, what they need, and just responding to them like they're someone you care about, right? And that really speaks.
And I think the hard part, being a parent, especially for the first time, is, it's really easy to meet their physical needs because they're tangible, because they're observable, we can see them. What's harder is tuning into them, into their emotional needs. How do I meet those? And that requires so much careful attention. And so that's what attunement is.
Yes. Oh, I totally understand and respect that. What, or I should say, why is it why is it so important, I guess, for child development? I mean,
so I'm going to go with something that a neuroscientist and mindfulness expert said. This is by Dan Siegel. So he explained that when we attune with others, we allow our own internal state to shift. So we come to resonate with their inner world we come to resonate with the inner world of another. And
Mm,
this resonance is at the heart of the important sense of feeling felt that emerges in close relationships. So basically, babies and children need attunement with their primary caregivers to feel secure and to develop well. And this is not just in infancy, in all stages of life, we need attunement to feel close and connected with others.
mm. Yes, I felt that today with my 6-year-old, and just with research and what I've learned in 6 years of being a mom. She has just been so crazy lately. And in the what you want to do is push away and just say, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this right now. I don't have the energy or whatever it is. And I knew in that moment, okay,
Yeah.
I think she needs more, right? I mean, so instead of doing timeout or what, it's like, I just said, can we have a hug? Let's have a hug. Let's just chill and then, baby or younger child was down for a nap. And so we played games and we talked and we just had, and her mood just totally shifted, right? And
Mhm,
so is
mhm.
that kind of with attunement, just really kind of honing in and yeah, just really kind of looking
Right.
at their emotions
And
versus
what you mentioned, you were tired. So if you're tired, it makes it very hard to have that empathy to
yeah,
really, get in someone else's shoes, in this case your child, because you're
yeah,
tired. It that energy or just that ability to like be present and notice your own emotions is harder to do, but you were able to do that. And once you did that, and then you kind of like connected and observed and realized, maybe she just needs more of me right now, more attention, and the other baby is asleep. Maybe I do have a little extra in me to give for that.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I love Dan Siegel. Oh my gosh. If anyone listening has not read his works or some of it's pretty thick that, like I'm still trying to get through I can't think of the one that I'm reading right now, but it's interesting. But oh God, I love him. I've heard him speak a bunch too. So how about attachment theory? How does this kind of come into play, or does it have anything to do with attachment theory, attunement?
So attachment theory focuses on the relationships and bonds between two people.
Mhm.
In adult infant relationships, it's an emotional bond with the primary caregiver, and it's really believed to be essential to the well-being of a child. And even recent evidence supports the idea that it is established through nurture and responsiveness. I think in the early stages, it was more of a behavioral approach. So behaviorists believe that attunement was achieved through feeding, through kind of like meeting the physical needs. But
Yeah.
then later on, more recent evidence supports the idea that it's actually through nurture and that responsiveness. So yes, attunement is related to attachment theory in that in order to foster and build a secure attachment, one where the child develops a sense of safety and therefore a healthy sense of self, the
Mhm.
caregiver should be able to attune to the child to meet their emotional needs, kind of like what we mentioned.
Mhm.
And then the child learns that their caregiver is dependable. And so, when you can have that attunement, you can foster that secure attachment.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. That I mean, and I read about attachment theory before, and it's interesting that
Mhm.
they thought it was, or the thought process was that it used to be just physical needs, and now we
Right.
realize, oh, do you feel like that's just in how we're really changing our view of the child? It used to be like, oh, they're just little, they're not really there, they don't really, and even in our society, like we don't really honor them as beings until they're older, right? And so I think with this, like
Right.
it's almost like we're kind of seeing like they are their own little being that we need to respect, and we want them to be well attached, but it's almost we're giving them more credit now. We're saying, okay, you're a little
Yeah.
individual from the moment that you're born, right?
Yeah. And I think it's, there's this shift happening where we used to look at babies and children as inferior than adults, right? Like adults were
Right.
more important. And there's, this is another topic, but this has to do a lot with, the colonized parenting mindset, where, you know, we look at parenting in the same way as if, you know, the parent is the all-knowing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we used to not regard a child's emotional needs as important as an adult's. Yeah.
Yes. And that is the trickiest part to, and I find myself when, you know, you've been spoken to, you've been parented one way to then, instead of just
Mhm.
telling them what to do, it's like, what would you like to do in this moment? How are you feeling
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
And you know, all that social emotional stuff that is just so hard to say, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. How could we take a break? How could we, instead of just snapping or barking? And obviously I'm talking about older kids, but we can kind of bring it back to babies.
Yeah.
So how does maternal mental health affect this mother-infant attunement?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So bonding is essentially, um, bonding is essential for healthy infant and child development. Um, Sometimes there's untreated mental health issues in the mother or the primary caregiver, and this can really negatively impact the emotional and the behavioral health of the child.
Mm,
When there are mood disorders present or even chronic stress, a caregiver is unable to be fully present, you know, or to attune to their babies. You know, when we are chronically stressed again or experiencing depression or anxiety, we're probably running on automatic, you know, and you know, we're also probably thinking that as long as we're meeting a baby's physical needs, you know, shelter, food, clothes, that's probably enough. You know,
mm.
this is not the caregiver's fault. You know, sometimes there are many factors that make it very difficult for a caregiver to be empathetic or to be present. You know, we can think of depression, anxiety. There can be a history of insecure attachment in the caregiver. There can be developmental trauma, a lack of social support, a child's illness, social, racial, and economic injustices, breastfeeding difficulties, unpaid family leave. You know, there's so many factors going on responsible for, you know, maternal or a caregiver's mental health, and then how that affects bonding with the baby. So, you know, the importance of addressing maternal mental health or paternal mental health, you know, cannot be emphasized enough. If we want a society in which children develop well and in which developmental trauma is not as prevalent as it is today. But again, for that to happen, so many societal systems would need to be reformed.
Absolutely. There's so much that we need to change. Oh my gosh. As you were
Yes.
going through that list, I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
I mean, you know,
Hmm.
there can be, like you said, the underlying just mental health issues in the past, but you know, I
Hmm.
know of a lot of people who are stressed and continue already thinking about when do I have to go back to work. I can once they have their
Exactly.
baby, it's like I don't want to leave this baby, and I've got to go back in 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, just really a short span of time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and their bodies
And we don't have a
healing.
support system for that. We don't have the support system for the caregiver to stay home. You know, then we experience a very early detachment from the caregiver.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just always go to like lack of sleep. Even if everything is great and you have all the support and you have all the, you know, um, financial means and, you know, there's no injustices on you and you're mentally good. Like, I just feel like lack of sleep, we really don't understand how much it affects our physiology and our mood
Hmm.
until you're
Hmm.
in it. So it's real. And I'm not saying you have to get a night nurse. You have to like I nursed at night and we exclusively breastfed. So you know, some people have like their husband get the bottle in the night. There's so many different options.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you, I think is good. But really just understanding that effect of lack of sleep and getting that
Yes.
support. And so when you can sleep, to sleep during the day and not be entertaining or doing laundry or you know, focusing out there like you need to be healing in the beginning. It's just that, yeah. So even if everything is totally fine,
Yeah.
it causes mental issues. Like I was crazy in the beginning, you know, and I think it was just lack of sleep.
No, I agree. You know, with I was also exclusively breastfeeding, and you know, when I think back about my daughter, you know, she's my second baby. I don't know how he got through, Sometimes I joke, it's like, I don't know how she survived. It was like, it was so hard to stay awake, to even just stay conscious while, nursing at night.
Yeah.
But then it's also so hard to follow. It was really hard for me, for example, to follow the advice of, sleep when the baby sleeps. It's like, it doesn't work. So you have to kind of like find how to rest otherwise. Sometimes it's like, um just putting aside your need for tidiness, maybe, like
Yes.
it's okay if the house is not tidy, just finding rest in whatever way you can, because yes, sleep deprivation can affect your mood so much.
Hmm. Yes. And what you said earlier really struck with me as far as, how we attune. It's not just like, this is nice, you want to be bonded to your baby. No, their mental health is dependent on this, their
Yeah.
well-being. And I see this even at 6 and 2, and that they are just such energetic beings and they really feed off of our energy. And there are days where I know they
Oh
slept
yes.
well. Yeah, I've know everything is firing on all cylinders, but maybe I'm stressed about something. And I'm like, why are my kids crazy people today? Why are they just off the wall? And I all I can think of is like they're responding to this internal stress, which I feel like I'm managing, but clearly I'm not, like something I don't, it's
Hmm.
insane.
Hmm.
It's so interesting. So
Yeah.
is there a time frame when attunement needs to happen, or when it would be like the most beneficial for a baby?
Yeah, I mean, you can always try to establish this, but the crucial time would be the first 3 years of life. So this
Three?
is when we want to focus on forming that secure attachment. And so this would correspond with learning how to and being attuned to our baby. So, children begin forming explicit memory around age 2, which is what we think about when we say memory, the events or the feelings that we can recall.
Mm.
But emotionally meaningful experiences are stored in a baby's implicit memory, which is
Mm.
unconscious. So this implicit memory affects us for the rest of our life. This is how our early experiences shape our nervous system. It shapes our automatic reactions and thoughts. And so responding and being attuned to our babies is stored in implicit memory. A baby learns that their caregiver is reliable, that the world is a safe place, that they can explore and ask for help, and that their needs matter and will be met. And this is
Yes.
crucial to a child's development. And this happens again through that secure attachment and attunement.
Oh, it's that's so incredible to know that we can have such a positive impact
Mhm.
from even so early, just with these like with, you know, um, yeah, well, that's my next question of like, how can we do this? Like, can you give us some examples or exercises to work on? But that is, it's a little scary to think about. And it's a little
Yes,
empowering at the
when
same
you said
time. It's like,
it's
oh,
amazing and it's also scary, right? That's like
yes,
a huge responsibility.
yes.
And whether we are aware of it or not, we are affecting their development in every sense,
Mhm.
and their
Absolutely.
future relationships, therefore.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
and I heard along the way, I wonder if you agree with this, that how we as parents talk to our children becomes their internal dialogue and their internal
Voice.
monologue, whatever.
Right, right.
Is
And
that,
yes,
yeah.
I've heard that too. And also, the way that we respond to them or the way that we treat them becomes their baseline for what they will allow from others. That's also
Yeah.
scary.
Yes,
So,
it is.
going into, what are some things that we can do or exercises for attunement. So there's, I think, three very important things that we can talk about. So the first one would be self-attunement. So, being aware of our own emotional states. We can practice self-attunement through mindfulness, for example, doing a body scan, identifying what we're feeling in that moment, and then learning to self-soothe. Maybe some of us already know how to regulate our emotions. Maybe some of us don't, because that wasn't modeled for us in a healthy way. And we are reacting the way that we saw our caregivers react to us, right? So it requires a lot of self-awareness. So, we can definitely practice self-attunement, tuning into our emotional states, and then positively responding to that and soothing our nervous system, soothing our emotions.
Mm.
That will kind of like create the perfect kind of like space to then attune to our babies.
Mm.
Okay,
Yes.
and then another one we can do is what I mentioned earlier. So understand and respect our baby's temperament. So let me talk about, there's like 4 identified areas where we are temperamentally hardwired. You know, one of them is novelty seeking. Some babies just are alert to anything new and intriguing, while others just prefer kind of predictability. And then there's harm avoidance. So some kids just prefer, you know, less risk, you know, they're more anxious than others. And again, this is normal. This doesn't mean that something is wrong or one is better than the other. These are just normal things that we are born with. And then there's reward dependence. So these are like social rewards, you know, like approval and acceptance. And then there's persistence. Some babies or children, they will never quit. They want to try. And so, you know, understanding what our baby's temperament is really important, because not every baby seeks or needs the same kind of comfort and bonding or reassurance, you know, etc. So when we can understand the different temperaments and identify what our babies fall under, we can respect those, and then that creates a very good base for attunement. For example, you know, if my baby is in tummy time and, you know, they're a few months old, but they can already kind of hold their head up a little bit, and we place little toys around, you know, encourage a little exploration. And I see that they're really struggling, you know, they're so close and they're really struggling, and they really want to grab that toy. You know, I may think that my baby needs me to help them, but they are actually innately persistent, and they will get upset if I don't allow them to try until they achieve it. So just because I think that they need help doesn't mean that they want the help, and I should respect that. So that is a good basis for attunement. You know, if we can see what their temperament is, and we can respect it, you know, even if ours is different. You know, sometimes we think that all babies want to bond in the same way, and that's not true. So that would take me to another tip. So that, like, the third one would be to understand and just to be aware that parent-infant bonding is not always automatic. So it's important to give yourself grace, you know, practice self-awareness, identify your own emotional states, learn to regulate your emotions, and then tune in, you know, observe, just breathe deeply. You know, what are you picking up? Attunement requires patience. It requires careful attention and understanding, and it can be learned. So, you know, sometimes when we become mothers or fathers, we think that bonding with our babies will be just, you know, this natural thing. And sometimes it is, but other times it's not. And that's okay. We can learn.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. I think those 3 examples or 3 things to work on is so powerful too. Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate that. And I know, I don't know. I've in the beginning, I think when they're little, it just can be hard because they don't smile. They're just little aliens,
There's
right?
no
I mean,
feedback.
they're
There's no
just nothing.
feedback. It's like, am I doing this right?
Yeah. Whether it's dad or mom, it's sometimes when they start smiling, it's like, okay, cool. I'm getting some feedback. I'm interacting with you. But in the beginning, you're learning their cues and their cries, and they're just not even like smiling, and you don't even know how far they can see. It's not much maybe, and it can be really hard. So yeah, I think honoring that and giving ourselves some grace when we're learning, you know, especially with the first child. So I really appreciate your time, Karla. This has been amazing. And I would love to have you back on to even talk more about some of the, you know, kind of dive deeper into some of these things. I think that's incredible. If you could just share with people if they want to reach out to you or how they can work with you, what are the best ways to contact you?
Yeah, so, well, you know, I am focusing on women's health, occupational therapy, at Renew Pelvic Health with Amanda and the team. And so my email is Karla at Renew Pelvic Health. And my phone number is on the website, I believe. I don't know that by memory.
The renewpelvichealth.com.
But those are the best ways to reach me.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I so much look forward to chatting with you some more about more of these topics. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me and for, talking about this topic with me. I think it's so important, and I'm glad that, our listeners will get to learn about it too.
Yes, and it's incredible. I totally agree.
Do you ever wish that you could learn the essentials of pelvic health from an experienced pelvic floor physical therapist at a fraction of the cost and from the comfort of your own home? This episode is sponsored by Progressive Pelvic Education, your source for online courses to expand your pelvic health knowledge and promote optimal wellness. Pelvic health is wealth, and there is a lot of essential information about our pelvic floor that isn't taught in school. Learn what to do and not to do to avoid the inconvenience and pain of pelvic floor issues in a self-paced course you can take anywhere. Visit courses.progressivepelviceducation.com to get access today.